The time is now 6:02, and I'm going to call the meeting to order for the March 17th Redevelopment Commission meeting. If staff would please take roll call.
My apologies. Peter Shaka,
Present?
Ryan Hamilton,
Here.
Bo Bigelow,
Here.
Casey Kendall,
Here.
Cassandra Meehan.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Perfect. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters not on the agenda. The commission's response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. Is there anyone online that would like to address the commission at this time or present here in the building?
Mr. Chairman, we have Dorlice Machado Liddell here who would like to address the commission.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Dorlice Machado Liddell. I am a resident of the Heritage District. I would just like to mention a few things, and I know you're going to have a study session regarding noise. I think noise should always be part of the architectural design, even though it wasn't in the design guidelines. Noise is a factor and will need to be mitigated, in my opinion. Also, when looking at it, the Heritage District is an entertainment district. It doesn't give the property owners the right to make as much noise as they would like. It only allows that because of churches and schools. So it's not about noise, it's also about livability. Parking. Parking is going to be extremely hard. I don't know where the parking study is, the new parking study, but that should be out to the public so the public can see that. In addition to that, it should also be utilized in the decision-making process because the last time I saw this proposal, they utilized the 1,000-foot area, which included the residential area. That will have a major impact on parking. It has an impact today when Farmers Market exists on Saturdays. Many people park in the neighborhood and walk on over to the Farmers Market, which is right in the area. In addition to that, the water tower and the line of sight. By right, the property owner has 55 feet. Great. 55 feet. Now, I know that in the past, people have tried to protect the water tower and the view shed for a very long time. The property owners that tried to protect it and want to protect it, it should be for the benefit of the people of Gilbert, all people of Gilbert, not necessarily just one property owner having the view shed of the water tower. So 55 feet is by right, and that's the way, hopefully, it will be. So those are the things. I just wanted to stress the fact that COVID had one positive thing for me, is that I did not have to listen to Whiskey Row on Friday and Saturday night, every night. It is extremely loud. It is not, the noise level is not mitigated. There needs to be mitigation. There needs to be sound architectural design that reflects that. And that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, at this time, we will open the line. And if there are any members of the public who wish to speak on an item not on the agenda, we are unmuting now. Please state your name. Hearing none, we can move forward, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So now we'll move into our administrative items. We are going to consider approval of the minutes for the regular meeting held on February the 17th, 2021. Are there any edits the commission wishes to make? And if not, I'm looking for a motion from the commission to approve the February 17th, 2021 meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the meeting minutes of the February 17, 2021 meeting.
Perfect. Do I have a second?
A second.
Perfect. So all in favor, at this time, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries forward. So at this time, I'd like to move into our study session and look at the staff's discussion regarding item Z21-01. And for the benefit of our new commissioners, study session items are meant as an opportunity for us commissioners to ask questions and provide feedback. No motions are made during study session. So staff, now the floor is yours to present the Brundrett Building request to rezone.
All right, can you hear me now? All right, wonderful, thank you.
A question for the staff. Is it okay to go to the communications part of our meeting now? Is that okay if we do that while they're working on the?
Mr. Chairman, yes, we can go ahead and just go through our communications while they're getting the presentation up and running.
So report from the chair. I had nothing to report today except for Happy St. Patty's Day. If you celebrate, be safe and make sure you take an Uber. If you decide you're going to have a drink, be safe. I am wearing green pants and green socks, even though I'm not green up here, so not that's important. But do we have any announcements from our council liaison?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I just want to welcome Cassandra to our commission. So happy to have you join us. Sorry I missed your swearing in last week. Also, wanted to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day. In light of that, the timing is just really fun to talk about. Our Gilbert Sister Cities program is working on putting together a Gilbert Sister City garden down by the regional library by the lake. And so we're excited to be moving that project forward. a couple of things that the council approved since your last meeting is that we reinstated study sessions for the council. And so you'll start seeing more of those come forward, usually at 5 o'clock before a regular meeting. And that gives us the opportunity to talk about major issues that are coming forward where we're all hearing it together. So be on the lookout for that. I think probably the next couple months will be focused on budget items. We also approved the Heritage District guidelines, and I just wanted to thank you, commission members, and the town staff, Amy and Amanda especially, and then all the citizens who participated in that. You're well familiar with that, but wanted to let you know that was officially approved. We also approved a lease and tenant improvements for the university building for the University of Arizona. And so you'll see more of that coming forward, but that's really exciting to see that we're going to have some expansion in our education community downtown. And there's also, and this is more just a FYI for you because it impacts close to downtown. There is, you've probably seen it in the news or if you watched our council meetings, there is a sewer line project along with a couple other water line projects that go along the canal. Just wanted you to know that we are looking at all options available to work with the neighbors. And so I know some people may feel a little disjointed in those conversations, but we really are looking to get to the best solution to make sure that we don't interrupt that important water service into the future that impacts over 1,500 homes. And so just wanted to let you know that those are some of the things that we've been doing at the council level. Thanks so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Tilke. At this time, we'll have a report from other commissioners. Last month's meeting was very short. We did only one item. That was the swearing in of our new commission member, Meehan. So at this time, if you'd like to maybe give a little history and thank you for serving and welcome aboard.
Yes, thank you. I'm honored to be a part of this commission. My name is Cassandra Meehan. I was raised in Gilbert. I am an architect, and I'm registered here in Arizona, and I've worked in a handful of other states, and I'm excited to serve the community that I live in, that I was raised in, and now I'm raising my children in. So thank you.
Awesome. Any other reports from other commissioners? Seeing none online? We're good? All righty. So with that, anything from you, Amanda?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I just would like to share with you that we went through the process for interviewing candidates for our redevelopment specialist that will be helping in the Downtown Heritage District. And Sydney, who is going to be presenting here shortly, has accepted that position and will be transitioning over to economic development next month. So we're thrilled to have her on our team.
Welcome. Exciting news. Thank you. So with that, we'll go back and if we're ready, we'll go back to our study session.
Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for your patience while we got this situated. My name is Sydney Bethel, and tonight we're going to be going over a rezoning request for Z21-01, the Brundet Building. Here I just provided a vicinity map for you guys to get a context of where exactly this is located within the Heritage District. So it's located at the southwest corner of Gilbert Road and Page Avenue between the Norwood Furniture and the Farmhouse Restaurant. Sorry, the button's sensitive. I didn't realize it changed the view. So here's an aerial. You can see that it's presently a vacant lot, and it's currently 3 parcels, so those will be combined in order to create this one development. So just to provide an overview of the request, the rezoning request is for approximately 0.36 acres. They are requesting a PAD overlay, so they are not changing the actual zoning of Heritage Village Center. So they're maintaining the Heritage Village Center base zoning district, but they are requesting for a PAD overlay. And the reason for this request specifically is to deviate from the land development code standards for height restrictions. They'd like to go past the 55-foot height restriction to 68 feet to the top of building. So I just wanted to provide an overview of the process and the hearings going forward. So this is the first hearing that this project has been presented at, and it is a study session in order to get feedback from our commission before we move forward. So after this, you will see the project again for a formal recommendation in the coming months. And after your formal recommendation, we'll go to the Planning Commission for a formal recommendation, and then we will go to Town Council with both yours and Planning Commission's recommendations for formal approval. And so tonight, I'm just requesting general feedback on the project and then specifically looking for feedback on the PAD request to increase the height. So here's the zoning exhibit provided of the subject site. So again, they're maintaining the HVC zoning district. There's no change in that, but in addition to the PAD overlay. Moving into the planned area development overlay. So shown here on the screen is going to be the development plan. So this development plan is going to be the parameters to which this project will develop when it comes in for design review and ultimate construction. So as you can see on here, they have a dashed outline of the building envelope, and it is in compliance with the other land development code standards in terms of setbacks. And I have put on the screen the request to increase the height to 68 feet up in the top right. The applicant has provided a conceptual site plan of how they plan to move forward with this project. As you can see on here, they've incorporated some of the elements that are encouraged and required through the Heritage District Design Guidelines and Redevelopment Plan. They're proposing some pedestrian-oriented seating on the front and rear, along with a pathway on the south side to allow access to the existing park. So since this request is mostly centered around a request to increase the height of the building, the applicant has provided some renderings, some conceptual renderings of what this building may look like and why they're looking to achieve that 68 opposed to that 55 for the height. So as proposed, they're proposing a 4-story building. So the first 3 floors, as you can see there, are just traditional stories. And the 4th floor has an atrium, a proposed atrium on the top that sits a little setback on top of there to allow rooftop access and some sort of gathering. The applicant has stated that their proposed use for this project is a mixed-use building, so a combination of retail, restaurant, and office on all 4 floors. So here in the perspective, you can see a pedestrian view along Gilbert Road from the north and south of what someone would look onto this building. And then here's just another front view for you. And this is going to be the rear of the building. And then another view from the rear. There was a neighborhood meeting conducted virtually on July 7th of 2020, and during that meeting there were residents that showed up and property owners to express some concerns and comments and inquire about the project. Some of the overarching themes were questions in compliance with the Heritage District Redevelopment Plan, impacts of the increased height, and then also impacts to neighborhood properties and site and access and connection concerns. So again, I'm just looking for general feedback tonight, and I'd like specific feedback on the PAD request to increase the height, and I'm here for questions.
Perfect. So with that, I'll turn it over to the other commissioners to ask questions of staff. I have a couple myself, so I might interject them now or at the end, but I'll go ahead and forgo to other questions from other council commission members.
Mr. Chair, a couple of questions, Sydney. One, and sometimes I find it helpful to kind of make sure we're all on the same page as far as narrowing the scope of what's really being reviewed and what's really being asked here. So the intended use is allowed right now, right? This isn't a request for use, or they can do what they want to do right now as far as the use perspective is right now, right? Okay.
Correct,
So
Commissioner.
really the only approval is the overlay, which increases the height. I think I understand that. I just want to make sure that we're not talking about whether or not they can use it for this, what they want to use it for, whether or not they could do this at all. It's just the overlay and the height deviation, I guess we'll call it.
Vice Chair Hamilton, that is correct. The request before you tonight is just for the PAD for the increased height. The uses that they have proposed in their narrative are all either permitted uses or uses permitted with a conditional use permit in the HVC zoning district.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then I don't want to mess with the presentation, it's been hard to pull up, but if we can go back to a couple of the conceptual renderings, right? I'm not sure which one, right there, that's good. So the overall height is 68, is that what I'm reading correctly?
Correct.
And tell me, that top, it's not the roof, I know, but if you look at the very top tree there on the top picture, so that portion that's just below that, kind of that awning, what's the height there?
Vice Chair Hamilton, so the applicant did provide some elevations conceptually that had height, and it was 48 feet to that point. So
Okay.
48 feet stopping at the third story, and then 68 to top. So
Okay.
that may change, but as proposed, they're showing
So
below 55.
on the top rendering there, we're looking at the 68-foot portion is actually not even visible from, well, I know it's conceptual, but based on what we're looking on, well, I guess on the bottom one it is, but on the top one it's not. Is that accurate to say?
Correct.
Okay. And I guess those are my questions. I guess I'll give my feedback now so we don't have to circle back to me. I like the idea of increased height in this portion of the district and on this portion of Gilbert Road. At least my personal observation is that we have some density and some height, and then we go down and then we kind of level off. And I think some disparity in elevations and in height would be a healthy density increase in this portion. And then I guess as far as feedback for staff goes and the applicant goes, knowing this is not an approval and just a study session and knowing that we'll be back to approve, I guess, I don't want to say my approval would hinge on, but my feedback would be both for staff and the applicant is that I think they've done a terrific job of kind of softening the height. It backs off of the street a little bit. There is kind of some scale back, and I'll defer to the architect on this, and the trees and the stuff on top does kind of, I think, mitigate and soften the feel of the height. So those elements I would want to see preserved, that instead of just a sheer 68-foot wall right on Gilbert Road with 0 setback lines, I think the mitigation, the softening is important. So it would be extremely important to me that was kind of carried through into whatever the approvable or a valuable final rendering was. So I guess those kind of softening and mitigating things I think are very well done, and I think those would be important to maintain for the final review.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Are there other comments, questions from commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions. So they're not allowed to add an additional floor, if I'm understanding. So they're still maxed at 4 floors. They're just increasing the height is the request. So does that height increase, is the goal that they achieve in doing so support some of the other initiatives of the Heritage District? I know that I had jotted down a couple notes straight from the website earlier, but to foster small-scale pedestrian-oriented mixed-use development. What are they using that additional height? How is that still supporting the overall goals for the district?
Commissioner Meehan, so there were some things described by the applicant in the first review, and I did request during my first review that they provide me additional information on how they're meeting that criteria to justify this request. But primarily, if I can move over to this slide here, they're stating that through celebrating some of the other elements, such as the creating a mixed-use building, having those pedestrian amenities, such as the pathway that connects to the Water Tower Park, and then also having ground floor seating on the rear and the front, it activates the streetscape. So on the top portion where they're coming through to request this specifically, they would like to have some sort of, I apologize, entertainment, either restaurant or something of that matter on top of the building in order to capture the views of the water tower for the development. So as described in their narrative, that's what they are stating is their primary need for their request and the want in order to make it a complete mixed-use building and kind of capture the views from the downtown. So not necessarily answering your full question of how this specifically meets the intents of the redevelopment plan or the design guidelines, and we will again ask the applicant to provide those details to come back with you guys with, but for right now, that is their main explanation for it.
And so a couple other questions. That top of that terrace, that's not at the 68, it's the top of that mechanical screening that gets to 68?
Correct.
And if it's approved, I know we're not voting on anything, but if we say, okay, you can go up to 68, What locks them into not being able to scrap this proposed plan and build up to 68 and have your actual parapet at the street at 68? Because that, I feel like, may look a lot more overwhelming than what this is showing.
And Commissioner Meehan, so some items that staff has discussed as something to preserve this design and some of those things of the step back is to put in the ordinance a step back for the third floor of a certain amount of feet. So since these aren't full floor plans elevations, and it's not a DR package, you're right, they are not tied to this specifically, but in the ordinance, along with the deviation for the height, we could also add in a step back of 20 feet from the third floor is required for the fourth floor. So something like that. We do have some other zoning districts that do require step backs. So that's something that we can work with the applicant and come with a number that would work with the commission and council to make them comfortable. Some other elements that we could look into is they show a lot of greenery. We could look into requiring a certain amount of rooftop green space or those types of items on the patios. That's not something that we've done before because we haven't run into this specifically, but it's something that staff has been exploring of what a reasonable number would be to have some of those softening features.
Okay, thank you. And last question, I'm sorry. So then I agree that if you look at it as a whole, we've got taller buildings more on the north side of the Heritage District, and we kind of slope down. So I do like how this would kind of start to balance some of that. But have we approved anywhere else in the Heritage District this additional height request, or would this kind of be the first parcel to have that?
Commissioner Meehan, we have previously, not along Gilbert Road, but off of Gilbert Road, the college building, I am blanking on the name.
The university building.
The university building, close, yeah, but no cigar. So the university building did request for a PAD to increase the height. The specific height I can bring to the next study session. I do not have it off the top of my head, but that was approved and constructed and is sitting there today. So not along Gilbert Road, but within the Heritage District.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there other questions from other commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Given the density of the visitors and the daily interactions that are happening within the downtown area, is there an established timeline for the project for completion, beginning and completion?
Commissioner Kendall, I have not, the applicant has not shared with me a construction timeline, so that's something that we can ask them about to share what their projected timeline for this is. And we can get back to you on that, but at this time, we do not know exactly.
And then to follow up with that, a study done on traffic going through that area, whether that's big supply trucks, those types of things, how will that be handled?
Commissioner Kendall, when they submit for a design review application after zoning to for their physical building, they will be required to submit a traffic study. And during that traffic study, there will be an analysis that is reviewed by our traffic engineers, our team, in order to assess what is needed to accommodate their building. And then also parking in the Heritage District is handled in a group manner, and they can apply for an administrative use permit in order to accommodate parking through the Heritage District.
Is there any anticipation of sidewalks or streets being torn up for utilities or anything like that?
Commissioner Kendall, at this time, I do not know that answer. They did provide an ALTA survey that does show those items, so I can reference that back and get with our engineering team to see if there's anything that is projected.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other questions online or on our commissioner that's remotely participating?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I have a few quick questions.
Okay.
So first off, the Vice President Hamilton kind of was heading the direction I was thinking, and I got an answer about that highest terrace being at 48 feet, and then the actual, mechanics area, if you call it setback, that one goes to the 68. My question is, I love the trees. I'm obsessed with trees. I think the greenery is awesome. I love the rendering. I mean, are those trees those trees won't be allowed to go past the height of the building, is what I'm assuming is probably what would end up happening, or what were your guys' thought on that?
Commissioner Bigelow, so we actually have not run into the situation before where there are trees on that high of a building. So that's something I'm going to have to look into on height restrictions. There are certain items that we allow through our land development code to go above the height. So some things such as mechanical screening and some other elements, steeples, some church items. So I will dive into that portion of the code to see if we do cover trees and see if that would be permitted to go above height. And we'll get back to you on that. It's a great question.
Okay, perfect. And the reason I ask is because I just did a quick Google search. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but Doralice is concerned about preserving the tower and this building being higher than all the others. Is it 230 feet tall? Is that where the highest point of the tower is?
I believe the tower is 128 feet tall. I'm looking at Amanda, is that correct, or 125?
I don't know off the top of my head, but if you give me just 1 minute, I'll pull it up.
I do not believe it's over 200. I believe it's in the 120 to 130 range.
In 20. Okay, either way, though, that just gives us a little perspective that at least we're half the height of it. I don't want us encroaching, within 10 or 20 feet of the height of the tower. So if we're half of it, then I would feel much more comfortable about that height than where it's at. The only other question or concern I guess I would have about this project, and it's not even this one directly, it's just ones moving into the future. Can you go to a slide that does a bird's eye view over this project?
Commissioner, so would you like a site plan or would you like the rendering?
See if there's a rendering one.
Okay.
That one would work. Oh yeah, this one, perfect. Sorry, yes, that one. Go one more back to where you were before, where it showed the back side of it. Okay, so if you look to the south of this, obviously, I love the walkway that's going through for pedestrians and everything just to allow people to walk back and forth. My only other concern though would be is Norwoods. I don't know what's going on there, but if you go over there and look, it looks like they built across the street in the asphalt right there. And it's like built up on some sort of stilt and water can run through it for drainage or whatnot. And that's a whole nother question, I guess, or scenario. But I just wonder, as far as safety and getting dumpsters and fire trucks or anything in and out of that area, if that's possible or what that would even look like.
Commissioner Bigelow, I'm going to have to look into that one and get back to you. Sorry, Amy Teams knows. Yeah.
Hi, Amy Thames, Principal Planner, Town of Gilbert. Can you hear me okay? The math
Yes.
is a little difficult. Okay, answer to a couple questions. The trees would not be counted toward height. It's a built structure. And it's measured to the mean elevation of the roof, which means the middle of the pitch of the roof from the eave to the ridge, halfway, that's the elevation. So it's not to the ridge line, it's to that mean elevation of a sloped roof, which it is projected as a sloped roof in the drawings they've given us. Okay. Number two, Norwoods. One thing I want you to know now, Norwoods, if you're thinking about scale and proportions, Norwoods is actually built with their foundation so that they can go to 4 stories today. They pre-engineered their foundation. So if the owners of Norwoods want to add 3 more floors to that, they can today. Now, yes, they would have to go to a design review process, but they thought ahead. And it was very forward-thinking of them, because to try to go back and re-engineer those foundations is almost impossible. Number 3, the bridge over the alley. That is through an agreement with the town that is currently in place, and it is bridging the alley. It actually is an architectural bridge. It is not foundation anchored into that alley, because there are utilities, live utilities in that alley. You cannot construct in the alley at this time. That is town right away. So there is an agreement with them that allows them to bridge it so that they could have a connection from one element of their store to the other. Discussions, and it's just an ongoing agreement with them at this time. So whether that remains in place indefinitely, whether it changes out, right now it is, the Norwoods would like to keep it in place because it's part of the design element for what they have intended for the site. But that is all still up for negotiation, and it would be discussed in your design review packet. But thank you for mentioning that, because that is a key element that someday it could open up in the back there. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
Anything else, Commissioner Bigelow?
No, I think that's it. I think it's awesome. I love it, and I can't wait to see further details on the project.
Perfect.
And commissioners, just a quick update, sorry to interject. Amanda provided me the heights. So for the university building, the PAD was approved to 68 feet, 8 inches. So that is what the university building has been approved for through the PAD, the only other building. And the water tower is 130 feet, just to provide some updates, thanks to Amanda. So proceed, yeah.
Thank you. And on the actual Gilbert Road, like from a pedestrian sidewalk, what is the tallest building that we actually have on the Gilbert corridor?
I believe it's building 313. So that building is at 55 feet and 3 stories.
So with that, I wanted just to make a comment that I think a 55-foot on the plane of a lot line, whether it be the front plane or the side plane, is a lot different than this being 48 feet on the front where the terrace is. So there's a difference, I think, visually as a pedestrian or, being in downtown where that 48 feet to that top floor of the floor, 48 feet versus 55 if it were to the plane. So I think the architect or the design team did a great job here. My question is, one of the comments you made earlier was that it might change, that 48 feet might change. And I was reading through some of the notes that one question was, is it 4 stories or is it 5 stories? And so, how much change could take place? Ultimately, you're not asking for a motion for approval today. So I guess, do we foresee a lot of changes coming forward? Because as I see it now, I like what I see it as it being 48 feet. So did you have any comments on that?
Commissioner Shaka, so it could change, so they would be locked in through the development plan for the building footprint, so that item would be locked in, and they would be granted, if it was approved, that additional height. So the actual massing and style of the building to that 68 feet would not be locked in unless there were other additional conditions of approval that we put in the ordinance, like a step back, like additional landscaping. So if we include those things that we like from this to be applied to the design review, that's something that we can work with and put in the ordinance and present forward to you when we come for formal recommendation of some items that we've identified through your discussion that we'd like to lock in so that the elevations do come back in a way that we approve of and were originally promised.
Thank you. And another question I have too, when we've looked in the past, for example, the gelato shop, when it came forward, staff had recommended a certain type of plant, for varied reasons in different aspects of the actual design. So I guess, does staff or does this commission, as it comes forward, do we have a say in the kind of greenery we see or the kind of screening that it is? And I guess the density of it, that could change too if the leaves drop in the wintertime, for example, versus a tree that's evergreen. And so I just want to know from a staff level or from a commission level, what do we have to ensure that the screening, even though this is stepped back very nicely, that the screening will be effective as a tool to kind of diminish that extra height?
Chair Shaka, so making specific landscape requests of different types of landscaping. So through the design guidelines, there is a specific plant palette that should be requested through there, and we have some additional things in the land development code. But through ordinance, through the PAD, we don't typically dictate the type of landscaping that will come in. That's typically handled through the design review. We could pursue items to require a certain amount of landscaping in the form of a percentage on the terraces. So that's something that we could lock in to make sure that we identify those areas where we'd like it and kind of how much square footage approximately or percentage we'd like to go through. So that's an option that we could pursue. We could possibly pursue specific landscaping, but it just would not be recommended until we see the full design going through.
Perfect. I was just wondering if it changed at all just based on the fact that this looks like a 0 lot line build where there's really no soil to put trees in. And so are the trees in big planters, and are they movable? And so I guess those are questions that will come forward as this applicant comes forward. So those are my main things. I think I'm not losing sleep over the extra 13 feet. The building itself is 60 feet, I think, and then with Amy explained, the peak of it, making it an additional 8 feet. I'm not losing sleep over the extra 13, nor am I losing sleep over possible precedents. What's the next guy, going to ask for? Is it 74 feet? I think the way that this has been designed, I think they've taken that in consideration. And I kind of like how it's bookending the downtown. So from what I see so far, I like the progress the applicants made with staff. And so there's nothing that I'm really losing sleep over, as long as it gets built kind of hopefully the way it looks, because it looks like a very expensive building at the very least. So with that, I'm done with my questions. If you have any comments.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chair.
So with that, are there any other comments from other commissioners? We've already wrapped up the end of our meeting. So with that, I think if there's no more questions or comments, none, I see none from staff and council. So with that, I guess we can go ahead and adjourn our study session. Thank you, staff.